presenter. Is that the right terminology? I actually presented at 1 Million Cups about 3 years ago in the old location and under the old format. And I was super grateful for that because as I was reminded this morning, it gave me an opportunity to share my story. Reminded both by our last presenter, give it up for Mike, and specifically by Frank Sinclair, who we all know is the encourager, right? So he said, what are you going to talk about this morning? You're going to tell your story, right? Because a lot of people don't know your story that are here. So I'm going to try to, in 6 minutes, bridge together my story and also provide a little bit of a business update from the last time that I presented. So I am a technology business coach. I own a business that helps entrepreneurs use technology to scale. That's what I do. But it's not who I am. It's certainly not where I started. And unlike Mike, you're going to get a lot of vulnerability this morning from me because it's impossible to tell my story without getting emotional.
Yeah.
So, at 13 years old, I always say that's where I started my first business. My mother and I were together. My father was not part of the picture. He abandoned us when I was still in the womb, so I never knew him. And I'm not sad because I didn't know him. I'm sad because he never got to know me. So, at 13, I went to my mother one day and said, I really want to go to the movies with my friends. I want to go see a movie, get some candy, hang out. But we grew up pretty poor. She's a single mother. She worked her ass off to try to give us what we needed: clothes, a roof over our head, food. And I never wanted for anything. I always had what I needed, just to be very clear. But it was a challenge because my mother worked 2 or 3 jobs to make that happen. We had this super tight relationship, and she always felt like, and I always felt like, we could just tell exactly what we had on our minds. It was never like beating around the bush. There was no sugarcoating in my house. She was a former Marine. We're Italian. Those 2 things should say enough. So I go to her on this Saturday afternoon and say, hey, Ma, I want to get $20 to go to a movie with my friends. And she just looked at me and she said, Craig, we don't have that kind of money laying around. I was upset, and I walked away, really disappointed. And I said, okay, I guess I'm not going to the movies. And as I left the room, she made a comment to me that has stuck with me my entire life. She said, Craig, there's always a way. There's never an excuse. There's always a way. There's never an excuse. She said, if you need $20 to go to the movies with your friends, go cut grass, go deliver papers, go clean up somebody's yard, go do something. You can earn $20 before you need to go to the movies. I ran down the hill from my house. There was one of the first touchless car washes ever created, like the ones that are at Loaf and Jug now. And I begged and pleaded with the owner of that car wash if I could wipe down the cars coming out the other side so that I could get money for tips. And he said, sure. I made $80 that day. I went back every weekend because now I had my first business. So I share that with you to tell you that I'm an entrepreneur. I think that that's the grit that we're made of as entrepreneurs, right? We have this hustle, this grind that we all want to get the things that we need to do the things that we want to do. But like I said in the beginning, that's not where I started. Because we grow up so poor, I think it's fair to say that I've always had this desire to want the next thing, to want more. And that's not necessarily bad until it becomes the point where it's idolatry. And I am a child of God, first and foremost.
Right.
And I do want nice things. But I've learned, especially in the last 14 years since I've gave my life to the Lord, that it's better to be content with what you have while you're aspiring for the other things that you may look forward to in your life. I came to that point where I gave my life over to Jesus because, like our previous presenter, and maybe many of you in the room, I struggled with drug addiction. And I didn't just struggle with it from a chemical perspective. I made a conscious decision to do drugs. At age 31, I got divorced because I was playing in a touring rock band, doing really great. And I felt like the world owed me something. I had been prior law enforcement. I had never done drugs. I had never smoked. And I had never done the drinking at the level that I did during this period of time. But I was in a spot where for 4, almost 5 years, I just indulged myself into this amazing darkness because I felt like the world owed me something. I wanted something more from the world. And because I gave my life to God, because God put another woman in my life that brought me to church, opened my ears, I woke up one morning and I put the drugs down. I put the alcohol down. After being suicidal 6 times, I tried to kill myself. And the last time I tried, I stuck my gun in my mouth and I pulled the trigger and the gun jammed. You could do what you want with that information, but at the end of the day, what it told me was I had something else to do. I had a greater purpose in my life. And it was at that moment that I started to rebuild myself, much like how Michael talked about this morning. So I'm just wanted to share that story, that vulnerability with you. The business update, business is going great because God is good. That's the update. So I'll open to questions.